Hi, this is Dennis Nestler, editor-in-chief of Lodging Magazine. Welcome to our roundtable today, prioritizing profitability. We have a number of leading owner-operators with us today to discuss some of the things that are going on with regards to operating costs and profitability in general. We have Jason Reeder, EVP Operations for Remington Hotels. We have Steve Batta, EVP Operations for Highgate Hotels. Simon Mendy, Divisional President, Select Service for Aimbridge Hospitality. Kerry Ranson, President, Operations for Rains. Richard Jones, COO, Hospitality Ventures Management Group. And Martin Schellenberg, VP Enterprise Sales for Integra. Let's get rolling, guys, with the discussion. Wanted to talk a little bit about rate and how that's driving profitability right now. The industry has done pretty well with regard to rate for the last 18 to 24 months. What are some of your strategies and how is that playing into the whole profitability equation? Jason, you want to start?
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of success with driving rate. I think before all of this, I think we were all probably a little more hesitant to take too much of a lead in the market with rate, just because you didn't want to get out too far in front of it. But I think we were all a lot more aggressive with how we positioned that, particularly in our resort side. We just saw unbelievable demand in places like the Keys and things like that. So we were really able to drive rate to a pretty hard degree.
Yeah, Simon, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. But I think one of the things that we pay attention to when there is demand is a natural flex for the revenue management team to actually push rate. And we use a lot of intelligence and machine learning that takes care of that. But I think where it gets critical is where there's a slowdown, let's say the Easter week, right? Where there is the temptation to drop rate to buy demand. That is where you really got to be very strategic to make sure that the team is not falling into that trap. Because when they do, you actually sacrifice RevPAR and you sacrifice profitability. So we're being very cautious about how we approach it and being very also critical about our mix, because the mix is important. As you operate varying levels, types of brands or verticals, you have to be conscious about the differentiation. Make sure you have the right guest in the right hotel, and that your pricing strategy does that for you, and you give profitability for your owners.
I agree with that, Simon. I mean, I don't think that lowering rate necessarily turns into, more occupancy. I mean, it can, but I think that, holding rate based on the product and the brand and the services for that hotel is extremely important. If you start chasing to the bottom, nothing good comes out of that. So, we have hotels that have invested after COVID of reopening with certain levels, different levels of food and beverage experience, whether it's room service and so forth, that, that experience deserves to have a rate to support that. So, holding rate is definitely part of our strategy.
Yeah. One thing I would just add, and I meant to say this before, is I think the other kind of challenge, at least initially, was in a lot of markets, these rates were above any former high. So there was kind of a reluctance at first, like, wait, we've never had rates that high. This is from the revenue management side. Well, we've never had wages that high. We've never had costs that high. So part of that was breaking through that kind of belief of, well, wait a minute, this market can't sustain that rate. It was really being bullish to say, well, we're in unprecedented times, which means we do things differently. You can't just go by what we've done before.
Right. The ceiling has kind of been raised. People are the customers are expecting it. It's everywhere, right now. And I think that, much along the lines of what you guys just said, we've kind of adopted the rate strategy as part of the overall profitability equation. Everything else is going up. If we're going to achieve our bottom line goals, we've got to optimize that mix. We've got to be disciplined. We've got to push the envelope in terms of rate and rate growth. And we're targeting over 50% of our RevPAR growth right now across the portfolio is rate-driven growth. And we've got a pretty diverse portfolio. We've got resorts and we've got suburban select service hotels and everything in between. So we've got every street corner's got its own thing, but at the end of the day, if the rate expenses are growing and the headwinds that we have against us on every level of the P&L, you've got to drive rate as a profit strategy.
Yeah, I think to Simon's point around understanding the critical mix has become important. We all have had rate opportunities and have continued to drive them. I think as you settling in now, I think the importance of that mix, understanding weekday versus weekend. What may have previously been a weekday thought of day, for instance, a Thursday, is now really a shoulder date on what becomes bleisure, to where you see folks staying over on potentially a Thursday, and a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or for Thursday, Friday, Saturday becomes a weekend now. And so pricing that differently, as well as your room type mix that you're pricing, and understanding where it'll have opportunity from a demand perspective regarding those different room types, has also been played important to this as you're going through it. And then the packaging component has, I think, also allowed us to do some different things. I think we've had a few of us talk about, where we are now regarding food offerings and things like that. And I think as we've continued to come through this thing, I think those packaging pieces allows even more opportunities for us to add in the consumer's mind value while still driving the rate. Because I think for most of us, the rate piece is where we're all seeing our revenue growth at this point.
Yeah. Anybody else want to comment on the bleisure trend and what the impact has been?
Oh, it's been, I think, realizing that there's still the persistence of work from home. People are taking advantage of that. They are actually working, and then they're traveling to continue that experience through the weekend or extended time in that city they're in, because of the flexibility of being anywhere and being able to do their work. So that has continued to be a driver in our ability to drive demand, and also continuum in the rate harvesting opportunity we have. So I think that's a reality. But I think also too, there's a piece on it that is important for us to talk about, is really when we talk about a mind shift philosophy, where we are in the third party business, most of us, and some owners are very keen on seeing that 100% sold out. And because of that, there's an affinity to just pursue being sold out, and you may end up sacrificing rate. It is okay to be 90 and still be $5, $15 in it, because you go to the bank richer. And I think that philosophy, that mindset, takes a lot of people time to absorb it. And you almost have to be in that paradigm of convincing people and showing them the difference between the two, and what that means in efficiency at the property level. The back of the house team, the operations team, just creates that flexibility that they have lesser rooms to turn, and yet they're much more better in profitability and going to the bank. So those are all things that you have to marry together. But to Kerry's point, the bleisure continues to be a big driver. And that's been the case even more since we got out of COVID.
Yep. I would add, I think that, the bleisure component, I almost think it's the new business transient. Before, if you think about BT was your bread and butter, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, you didn't have to worry about it. It was the other parts of the week. And now it's almost reversed itself. Not that there's no BT, but I think when we look at why we've been able to recover the way we have, I would argue that bleisure component has been a huge piece of replacing the BT business that hasn't quite come back.
Yeah. And you got Sunday nights now, right? I mean, Sunday night used to be a nothing, right?
Yeah.
And Thursday nights, like you said, that Thursday to Sunday, now it's kind of an odd thing, but that used to be, you struggled, right? It was like if a group wanted to come in and stay on Sunday night, the answer was yes. You didn't need to hear what the rate was. Now, it's like, wait a minute, let's talk about this.
If we could all figure out Sundays back then.
Yeah, it's more of a natural blend. It used to be, all the suits left on Thursday, and then all the bags came in on Friday. Now it's much more of a blend, and you're also seeing that double occupancy because they're bringing their spouses and significant others with them. You're seeing much more spend per occupied room because of that. So the hotels also had to change their mindset, as well as making sure that they're getting what they actually are coming for, which is that work-life balance and being able to experience, like in New York City, be able to experience things in smaller bites than coming for a whole week and experiencing everything at once. It's these quick hit 3-day weekends that we're seeing more of. So like Kerry said, the packaging and how you're packaging food and beverage is very important there.
Sure. I want to switch gears a little bit to supply chain. Huge issue for the last few years, bottlenecks and things of that nature, not being able to get product, in a timely manner. Martin, what are you seeing in terms of supply chain? Have things improved in the last 12 months or so? What's your take on that?
Yeah, good question. I mean, the last 12 months have been rough, and I think we'll see some more of that moving forward. But I mean, disruptions have been everywhere. I mean, transportation, logistics, manufacturing. You add on top of that, shortages in raw materials. The labor costs that we already talked about. So, have we seen the end of this impact? Probably not. There will be some more of this. Are we slowly coming out of it? Yes. I mean, we do see delivery timelines getting shorter. We see supply opening back up, and that is for the U.S. and internationally as well. So, I think we're on the path of recovery, but we probably still have a few months, maybe a year and a half ahead of us with complications. Just have to be honest with each other.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts on the supply chain? Any experience from you guys?
Yeah, I'm going to turn it like 90 degrees, Dennis. I'm going to talk a little bit more about supply chain as it relates to CapEx spend, renovations. Going into COVID, and it hit us by surprise. We had a lot of hotels that were earmarked to start having their renovations in 2020, 21. But with the supply chain, the way it was, costs going up 30%. I mean, if you're going to do a $50 million room renovation and costs go up 30%, you're going to second guess whether or not you're going to wait that out or not. And we had some ownership that were further down the pike that ended up moving forward with that. And then we had some that have continued to keep punting on those renovations, or those fitness center renovation, full renovation. But what we're seeing right now is it went from 30%. I think we're seeing it coming a little bit, maybe 5 or 10% above what it used to be, and I'm hoping that by the end of this year, those will flatten out a little bit more, because we definitely have a backlog of hotels that are going to be renovating in the next 2-3 years.
Yeah,
What I've noticed is it's kind of a mixed bag. I think it's a little bit of, I think some items have gotten a lot better, where you're seeing it's not nearly as bad as it was. But then there's other things where it's like, it was just the other day, I was looking at CapEx. I can't remember what the item was, but I was like, yeah, we can get that for you in October. I'm like, October, yeah. It was April at the time, and before you wouldn't have been like, no way, I'm ordering somewhere else. Now it's like, well, that might be my best option. It's kind of
we're all competing against each other for mattresses.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem.
Things. The lead times are more of the issue these days, often more so than the pricing. The pricing's somewhat moderated, or we're just now kind of getting used to it and building it into the assumptions. But lead time has been one of our biggest challenges, to be able to kind of keep renovations moving, specifically to kind of keep all the pieces coming in sequence, and be able to stay on track. And then the knock-on effect of one critical element gets delayed, and holds up the rest of the show has been a really big challenge. But starting to see signs of it getting better. But I agree with what Martin said. I think it certainly looks like it's going to be another 12 to 18 months. There's just so much volume out there. There is so much demand, and people are getting back to spending the money and reinvesting. So the demand side of the equation is not going to really let up that much, in my opinion.
Yeah,
no, and the staging becomes really tough right now. I mean, that's exactly right. It's trying to plan the things accordingly, and as you sit there to say, okay, if I'm timing it out, but the problem is one chain ends up having a delay on a particular product, yet that's what you need to finish off a room. You want to talk about disruption. I mean, disruptions from the standpoint of how we underwrote potentially a renovation or a conversion ends up completely going sideways. And that's really the tough piece of all this is, it seems like it's getting better, and then out of nowhere, you get a particular product for whatever reason now has, whether it's the demand that's been produced and can't keep up, or for whatever reason, you end up where it puts you back to something 10 months ago we had no problems with. Now we are having a problem with, and the staging has just become a nightmare.
Yeah. Simon, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, it doesn't help that, look, we know there's increased demand in construction, there's increased demand in F&B, there's increased demand in supplies. We started off the conversation about rate, but then we talked about the demand from leisure, right? So there is demand, right? Occupancy is strong. So that doesn't help either. So I think for us in our day in Enbridge, we are focused on really planning. We are engaging ownership groups and the brand to make sure we are clear about what are the PIPs that are coming, the schedules, and really making sure that we are planning ahead and creating a very good plan against what we need to order in advance. So we're doing that based on adjacencies of properties. We're doing that based on adjacencies of brands to make sure that we can place one order that covers several brands, hotels that we have that are of similar spec. So that is really helping us in this process. But planning is key, and our relationship too with our suppliers come into play, wherein they know we got the volume, and because of that, we're trying to use that muscle to really make sure that we have priority in that goal of reducing the lead time that Kenny talked about. But other than that, I think this is going to continue for a while because I think the supply chain issue, the inflation impact, I mean, look at inflation. It's stabilized, but prices are not going down significantly as we would have expected. So I think that is going to continue to be a reality. That's why we got to continue doing both. One, being very aggressive on our ability to harvest ADR, because that's critical to really helping us be profitable when we look at our business holistically. But two, continuing to really work on our relationship and price category and really making sure negotiated pricing continues to be driven down to nothing in excess of the inflationary pressure. If you're able to have those two equilibriums, I think we're going to be in a great position to get things right.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to switch gears a little bit. We referenced earlier rising wage costs. Obviously, that's an impact on everybody here. How are you guys managing that? How are you navigating around that? And what are some of the strategies that you guys are using? Steve, you want to jump in on that?
Sure. Staffing post-pandemic, I mean, it's been pretty rough. A lot of people reimagine what they wanted to be in life. They wanted to, whether they want to relocate, be a travel agent, get out of the business. I mean, we've saw a lot of that, especially with people who have like 1 to 7 years worth of tenure. And then you see a lot of people that, it's the grass is always greener on the other side. So they're looking at other positions and companies to switch to as well. So, I mean, I think staff is the most important. What we came out of the gate is, oh my God, we need to replace these positions. And now it's more about, hire hard, training is easier instead of, hiring easy, training is hard. So I think it's really important that you need to have all those conversations up front with the candidate, making sure they understand what the expectation is, and then pull through on them on the other side. I mean, it's not a job, it's a career. Make sure that they have the supplies, tools, and equipment, training, inspecting what you expect, making sure that you have scoreboards that people know whether they're winning or losing, and then recognizing people. I mean, this is kind of like, we've all done this and said it. I think today it's so critical at all levels to engage in a new employee and making sure that they feel like they're onboarded and they're part of the family. I think that's the most difficult thing. What keeps me up at night is staffing.
Yeah, that's very much along the lines of kind of how we've approached it. I mean, the market, we cannot control the market. We're not the market maker, but we need to be right at the right point in the market to be competitive. Mm-hmm. But what we're really focusing on is what does it take to drive retention and eliminate turnover, and in conjunction and right there with it, reduce the dependence with contract labor. And the turnover and retention piece is really that's what we have the most control over, and I think that's really where we're spending a lot of our time and our resources to be able to to get that right. And all of those things that you just said about treating, giving them the proper introduction to the job, the proper career path, and giving them the future opportunities that that this industry provides, because there's no other industry like the hotel industry where, I'm sure we all have a very similar story. We started working at a front desk, we started working in a restaurant, and here we are, doing this today. And I think, show me any other entry level positions where, you can have that much opportunity and that much real world, example, of it. So that's really what we're dialed into. And I think that, we've gone into the year knowing that, we lost all those folks, and you're bringing people in, they may have never worked in a hotel. So it is all about the training and that costs a lot of money. And, we've really kind of dialed in our expense expectations and productivity expectations in other areas so that we can put more into that, knowing that those key line level positions and those F&B and those sales roles that went away for 18 months are just, now kind of ramping back in many places, get the get the proper attention and the proper support that they deserve.
Yeah, if I had to
Yeah.
be an optimist by nature, which I typically am, the wages, it was a crazy growth. But the truth is, our industry was behind in wages to other industries before COVID happened. I mean, when you look at things like Amazon, I remember having an interesting fact when I went to visit a hotel, and I noticed the McDonald's sign was hiring. Their starting wage was more than what we were paying our front desk. We're like, that's not good, right? So I think something was going to have to give. The issue was going to be the owner wasn't going to approve that during normal times. You couldn't have said, hey, I got to go from $7 an hour to 10. What are you talking about? That's almost a 50% increase, right? But I think this did allow us to level set. But I agree with what everyone said. I think what we try to focus on the most is the retention piece and the onboarding piece, because when you're talking about recruiting and hiring, if you're not retaining the talent that you're getting, it's just a constant cycle. So I think it's really, really important to focus on that. I think the other thing that we've done, I'm sure all of you have done it too, is it's no longer necessarily about hiring someone who has all the experience in the world. You're hiring sometimes for personality, you're hiring for what you think that, they say they want to be in this business, and now it's our job to train them. Because the reality is a lot of people did leave, and we all have to be stewards now of this industry and bring new people in and kind of show them the ropes. So I think it's a combination of all those things. I will say, I think staffing has improved. If I looked at where we were a year and a half, 2 years ago, while there's still challenges, it has improved from where it was, post-COVID.
Martin, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I was going to say one thing that's very interesting is, the kind of requests we see coming through, and how, other industries are starting to bleed into lodging, specifically healthcare and restaurants, where we see, robotics coming in, for all kinds of different services. We do see, on the non-food side, for, simple concierge services to cleaning solutions. On the food side, you have the Mary Chef, the turbo chefs that are supposed to, augment, some of the staffing you already have. You see automatic frying solutions, automatic coffee solutions. I mean, there's all kinds of, think tanks that are thinking through what can we do to release some of that labor pressure. There's some really cool solutions out there. They're already being applied in, various other segments, and slowly but surely they're making their way into into lodging as well. All that said, it just really needs to augment your service model. And, I could not agree with all of you more that, the most important resource you have on your hands are your people. They're going to be the ones that get you through these tough times, and they're the ones that are going to make or break your businesses. So, training is vital, and making sure you train through the right resources with the right partners is a thing that we've been very focused on. And it's of utmost importance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everybody's saying, a lot of the same things on our end, and I think, with Reigns, we've invested on the human capital side, and probably went a bit deeper into the HR, as we call it, people and culture component, where you've got folks that are, assigned from a training perspective from the get-go on a hire, where we're really singing from the mountaintops from a culture perspective and what that brings, and then recognizing as well, because I think Steve had said it, where look, we're not, the market's driving itself right now from a rate perspective, but what can you do that once you get them beyond the culture and the training in meeting their lifestyle needs currently, and that's shift preferential, where we're allowing them perhaps 3 days a week or 2 days a week, where they're only wanting to work 4 or 5 days a week, and getting away from these set 7 and 8 hour shifts. And yes, it's harder to schedule, but some of the technology that is out there that is helping us now get to a component that makes scheduling a lot easier through, some BI components that are out there and available to us that weren't before. I think those have been some important pieces for us to try and retain, and understanding, look, these team members that are coming to us now, the ones that want to be here, if they're going to be there for 3 or 4 hours a day, 2 days a week, they're wanting to be there, because trust me, the rest of them are sitting at home doing nothing. And so we might as well use that to our advantage and train them to do different roles as well. The old things we used to talk about on cross training and things is really starting to rear its head as well for us in those roles. So I think that's been for us the same.
Yeah, we believe within those lines. I think we believe attracting, training, and developing top talent reduces turnover and cost. And I think part of our pillars we've created to help with that process is just creating a service-based culture that really drives the belief that, people want to find a place to grow, succeed, and belong. And one of the things that we're doing in addition to what my colleagues shared is we are really focused on skill leadership development and leadership skill. And one of the things that is helping with that is through the Castell program, through the Advent Harvard University program, through some of the programs we have in developing our teams, even using the AHLA, we've been able to create a growth pathway for some of our leaders, general managers, line associates, that they know their career path and they also know that they can really grow in the organization. That creates stability in knowing that I would get somewhere as I continue my growth trajectory. And I think being able to create that stability, I think is very important to our business. Otherwise, cost is going to continue to skyrocket. You no longer have to think about supply chain, but you have to think about the human part, and that's the biggest cost. Most of our hotels that we run, payroll is the biggest expense. So I think if there's anything to focus on is payroll. And those costs are not changing anytime soon. Last thing I remember, when wages go up, they barely go down. So when you hire people at 15, come December next year, you don't come and say, well, now I'm going to have to pay you 12. That rarely happens, right? It sticks. So it's critical for us to really make sure we're driving costs through the talent piece.
Right. Steve, did you want to weigh in? It looked like you wanted to.
Well, I agree. Again, this is kind of gone full circle, but one of the things that we were doing at Highgate is we always have a task force team with the reopenings and so forth. And what we're doing with the task force team is we're actually converting them into training teams. So, a seasoned director of finance is now no longer maybe attached to one hotel. They'll have a sister hotel that needs to go over there and onboard them. I think you're looking at things differently today. Like Kerry said, the 4-hour shift, the 2 days work from home. I mean, things that you would never even think about pre-coronavirus, I think is all in play now. And that balance of quality of life is truly extremely important to our team members, and we need to change with it.
Mm-hmm. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about scale. We've got all you guys have numbers of properties, large numbers of properties, some from Ambridge, almost 1,1700. Forgive me for the numbers off, Simon, but a lot of properties and a lot of efficiencies to be gained there. What does that do for you guys from a procurement perspective in terms of being able to leverage that? Anyone want to weigh in? Simon?
I think numbers are scale comes advantages, right? And those advantages are expected from our team internally and our community of owners to be able to really leverage it. And I think what we are doing is we are very focused on our partnerships and expanding our partnership base so that we have more access to supplies. Then we talk about creating category management. And then next thing is pricing. And we are very focused on that. One, being able to establish those foundations, right, that those exist. And we have that available as a resource to our hotels. And then also making sure that we educate our team to make sure they're ordering within the categories and then the right pricing, right? Because the right product. Because when we do that, that's when you really now start to see your scale and your procurement capabilities all translating into product profitability. Because you could have all of that together, and if the manager doesn't really commit to making sure that they're compliant on ordering the right product and the right category, I think everything will be off. So we're very keen on that. And I think we also making sure that we continually going back and reviewing our contracts and agreement to drive down cost. There are opportunities here and there from one switch from one product type to another, from one type of bacon to another makes all the difference, right? So where there is flexibility, we're making sure that we're taking advantage of that. Any new news in product, we are looking at it and peeling the onion. So having a dedicated team that is focused on really pursuing opportunities in relationships and also looking at product categories that we can take advantage of, I think is key to our success. And that's been a big factor for why we have had a good advantage against anyone else.
I think we're not big like Simon. We don't have that many hotels out there. But I think to a scale perspective, when you start looking at groups like everyone on our panel today, the scale piece does allow, from the standpoint of us providing, cost efficiencies throughout a P&L, to also include below the bottom line, to where you're touching things because of your volume around, property insurance or property tax ability of being able to negotiate and appeal those type of things. But I think, Simon hit it too. That purchasing platform is vital for us because, one, it allows us from a market basket perspective to take regional particular vendors that may be cost efficient in particular regions where we have assets and we're servicing those assets. But then also making sure as you're getting these assets and you're managing these assets that the property managers are pushed through a purchasing portal that we're then feeding these procured rates and the vendors at a particular rate of which we've negotiated on their behalf, and ensuring that consistencies across the board for us, to where we don't pick up one day and start wondering, well, how the heck did our breakfast costs go up by this much? When you're pushing through these purchasing platforms like that, where we're able to, like this particular group, it makes all the difference in the world when you start looking at these financial statements across different brands and different markets as well. But I think that becomes, when it comes with volume, I think it, obviously offers its efficiencies throughout a P&L.
Yeah, same, very similar story with us. We're kind of just hitting that point where, we're starting to realize we have a little more leverage, and, we kind of, targeting where and how to apply it. And I think one of the things we did last year was we've fully automated the procure to pay process, so that, we've got the ability to have input and influence and give general managers and individual, properties, a reasonable level of autonomy and decision making to kind of do what's best for their customers and do what's best in their particular market. But we've got better insights and better intelligence now into, what are we buying? How much of it? What are we paying for it? What are the options? And, with, not just on the front end in terms of what the product availability is and setting up the purchasing guides and all of that, but, really being able to get very precise to where the volume is, what specific products, and then, use that to start making some decisions. So we're in the early days of that, but, it's kind of part of our broader business intelligence strategy to really kind of drill down into those key drivers of performance. And we think that's going to be a real opportunity for us in the near term.
Yeah. If I may, I really love love that focus, because being in the world of volume purchasing, I think, having the volume is one thing, but, putting it to action is a whole nother story. And, it is vital to, in today's day and age, leverage the right technology to enable your teams. Because you can have, billions of dollars of volume, if you don't really funnel them through the right relationships, through the right partners, through the right contracts, then, your volume might not be as helpful as you think it is. And Carrie, to your point of, there's extremely large players out in the field, and then, there might be some medium-sized ones that might not get the full advantage of the scale of the large players. I think at the end of the day, if you align yourself with an organization that can pool some of that volume for you, you can get some of it. I'm not saying you're going to get the same exact value, but I think, to me, at the end of the day, what it all comes down to is working with the right partners, and that's extremely important for us as a group purchasing organization when we decide what are we going to do with all this volume, like what kind of contracts are we going to drive it through. And then, again, supporting it with the right technology is key.
Yeah. Well, we're getting short on time, so I just want to kind of get some closing thoughts from you guys, just on the business in general, and where you see things for the rest of 23 and going into 24. Lots of economic headwinds, as we all know. mild recession, maybe inflation, et cetera. But fundamentals remain pretty solid on the hotel side. So anything related to profitability or performance, just some final thoughts on kind of what you see ahead. Jason, you want to start?
Yeah, I already kind of gave it away. I'm an optimist, but I think, despite everything and kind of the economic headwinds you just mentioned, I really do think that long-term COVID is going to be a positive to our industry. And the reason I think that is you go back to like the Great Depression, right? That there were generations of people that were very, very tight with money because they went through that period of time. That impacted them for the rest of their lives. I think what could happen with this is that people now are not going to wait to travel. And I think we've seen that. So instead of saying, yeah, we'll do that next year, I think people are now saying, no, we don't know what next year can bring. There could be like what happened for 2 years, right? Where you really couldn't travel, didn't have that ability. So what I'm excited about, I love this business. I'm sure we all do. Just like what I think you referenced earlier, I started as a dishwasher in a restaurant, right? What other business can you have where you can move up and do all these different things? But I do think the mindset of the traveler is different now. And that instead of doing one vacation, maybe now let's do a couple, let's put that together. So I think for me, what I look at is even though we've got these economic headwinds, this may be one of the first times we see a recession, but our industry still stabilized. Whereas typically when a recession comes, our business goes down. This could be different now. And I think there's, like I said, a lot of positives to look forward to in our business.
Mm-hmm. Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with Jason. I mean, everything that you read in the paper, you watch in the news, looks like things are going to be terrible, but yet we do not see that in pace. We do not see that in our futures. We're bullish and optimistic that this is going to continue to keep moving forward and up. We're looking forward to 2024. We think that is going to be, a breakout year. We're seeing great pushes right now with group coming back. I mean, we definitely see the international going back, and we see, maybe not the big conferences and the huge events yet, but those normally take 24 months to bake and plan and so forth. So we're bullish. We feel really good about the future of the industry.
Yeah, Carrie.
Well, Steve's taking all my good lines. It is, we got headwinds out there, but our pacing and everything looks good and tells a different story. I think for us, we've kind of stayed maybe stubborn and steadfast, recognizing that, I think we got to poise ourselves for what is kind of a long-term performance play. And for us, some of that is, our motto has been around taking it to the streets, where, we're using the theme to recognize our ability to try and be a place people want to work in our particular markets. I mean, we're somewhat regionally focused in our assets, and it's also from the standpoint of a sales aspect and recognizing where some of these sales and all are coming in and the opportunities, whether that's from a Smurf perspective or getting back into a lot of our L&R groups and things that are out there selling things. And, I think that for us has been a positive and a win forward as we try to poise ourselves is, look, let's get back in our markets and know them intimately, and being present in them intimately has kind of been our focus as we kind of try to figure our way through this thing.
Mm-hmm. Great. Richard.
Would reinforce a lot of what what was just said. Our pace is strong. Our optimism is high. I think the fundamentals, look strong as far as, you can reasonably see into the future. I think that, the mindset shift and the cultural shift of the desire to travel and the intent to travel and actually, doing it, you see it every day. And I think that is just kind of it's a human need. It's a right, and it's going to continue. I think we'll hit some headwinds here and there, but I think hopefully, when you bring it back to the whole concept and the focus here around profitability, I think everybody's realizing the same thing, that we've realized a new level of rate performance, and we've learned things about what the customer is really willing to pay, and hopefully have broken our historical mindset of being a commodity product and pricing in a commoditized, way to, be able to realize that it's about the experience, number one. And, we've got to continue to build on that. We haven't been doing the best job around executing on the experience side of things throughout all of this, and it's getting better, and that will get better with the talent improving and the training and the cultural stuff that we all spoke about. But I think, longer term, from a business fundamentals point of view, I think, hopefully we have reached a new paradigm and a new normal where, rate and, achieving a certain level of rate is a key element of a profitability strategy. And that, as operators, we recognize the fact that, we've gotten to this point the way we fought hard to get here. And, I think the best thing we can all do is hold on to that and not give any of that ground back up, because there will be some challenges. There will be some pockets there will either be too many, some new hotels are going to start to reopen and there's going to be a supply story, or there could be, some softening of demand. But I think as long as we continue to be disciplined around the pricing and the rate piece, we can make the bottom line expectations, and, we can deliver for our owners.
Simon, a minute or less, what do you see?
Yeah, I think this meeting today created, we have accepted that this is the new normal, because every other panel will talk about business travel, right? I think that is key. And I think with COVID and what we've gone through, it made us a lot more nimble now, doing with what we have. And I think that's going to be important. One of the changes that would happen going into 2024, as I look at things, the rate advantage is going to be that wage. And how do you continue now to grow ADR? How do you get more from a customer rather than just what they paid in ADR to get into? How do you get more from the customer? The package comes into play. All of the amenities that you can sell that customer matters. Because at the end of the day, with high interest rates, we also have to realize owners are going to need that cash flow. And our ability to drive cost, ability to really flow and flex where necessary, I think is going to be critical. So when I look at the lens, I think that about who we bring into the business, but how do we get more from that customer and help grow cash flow?
Great. Martin, you get the last word.
All right. Well, we've come so far. I really, I agree with everything that's been said. I also like to think of the glass as half full as opposed to half empty. We've seen tons of innovations, over the course of the past few months, past 2 years. We've seen a lot of great things, coming out of what started off as a big catastrophe with COVID-19. I can see on a daily basis how volumes are picking up. So, I have a very positive outlook for the future. And, I think at the end of the day, we're in an industry that's known for problem solving. Together we're strong, and we'll make this happen. And I'm looking forward to, coming out of this on the other end with, some more success stories.
Great. I want to thank you all for sharing your insights today. It's been a very interesting session, and I think our viewers are going to find this very informative. So thanks for everybody for participating, and thank you for watching, and have a good day.